Welcome, everyone, to Pro Baseball Central. This is Joe McDonald. We are with you for the next few minutes, and we're going to be discussing what's going on in the national pastime over the last week. The big news is the Mets signed Wilson Ramos to fill a catcher role. The man is known as the Buffalo, and he has been a long-time catcher for the Washington Nationals, and then also moved on to the Tampa Bay Rays, and most recently the Philadelphia Phillies at the end of last year. Obviously an upgrade over Travis d'Arnaud and Kevin Plawecki. So really the Mets are continuing their improvement this offseason. It's filling a right-handed role, and we're filling a right-handed power hitter. He's good for about 15 home runs for the year. Hits around 300. The Mets are obviously better today than they were last week before they signed him. Plus, they also finished off their Don Quixote-like charge for JT Realmuto, which would have probably cost them Noah Syndergaard, because it leaked out that Syndergaard was going to be a one-for-one swap with Realmuto, which Brodie Van Wagenen properly said no. Syndergaard actually maintained a very good-natured humor about his trade rumors. They actually announced today that there's going to be a Game of Thrones Noah Syndergaard bobblehead day. I guess they got tired of Thor bobbleheads with Marvel, so it's going to be a Game of Thrones one to come out in April when the new season comes out of GOT. And he said, "Now you can't trade me now, ha ha ha," on Twitter. So good for him, good for Noah, good for the New York Mets. But the big news really this week wasn't the signing per se, but the attitude that Brodie Van Wagenen had at the press conference. Interesting that he said right now he feels the Mets are the best team in the National League East. He may not be entirely wrong because all the rosters haven't been set. But still the Nationals look better, even though they're without Bryce Harper because he remains a free agent. The Phillies said they're going to spend stupid money, and they're in the hunt for Manny Machado. The Braves, they might make a trade or two and may even get Realmuto. So it's still going to be in flux. Still moves have to be made. He also moved off the point that they may be going after a big-name center fielder like an A.J. Pollock. Rather, they might go after someone like an Adam Jones or maybe even a lesser name to fill in the outfield. Now, to be noticed also that Rajai Davis was also signed this week to a minor league contract to add depth. But that's the important thing now that the Mets need to do, is they need to add to their depth. Because if everyone stays healthy, great. The Mets probably will compete for a wild card position, if not the National League East, depending on how everything folds out. But as we know with this team, the last number of years, injuries always have been part of the story. So they need to get depth on the bench, depth in the minor leagues. They need to fill up Syracuse with maybe Major League ready or former Major League players who they can bring up, who may be looking for jobs, and they will be able to sign them to minor league contracts and put them down into AAA. They need probably one or two more starting pitchers down there that could easily come up into the majors if need be. And they probably need a little bit more bullpen depth. And they probably need a little bit more, another little bit more in the outfield and maybe even in the infield positions. This is going to be the smart moves. Now, what Van Wagenen did were easy moves already. Jeurys Familia wanted to come back. He came back. Great. Wilson Ramos wanted to come here. The Mets needed a catcher. It fit well, and he signed. Great. The Mariners are on a fire sale right now. They're selling everyone. The Mets took the contract of Robinson Cano, so therefore they got Edwin Diaz. These aren't trades that are smart moves. Now we're going to see where Van Wagenen sits on the smart moves. Number one, he's going to need to get the diamonds in the rough. Get the guys who may be former starters to maybe be bench players for the Mets. So they need those type of guys. They need the 1-year deals. The guys maybe who are coming back from a bad year and willing to sit on the bench and prove themselves. They need maybe, 1 or 2 more bullpen arms in the bullpen, notably a left-hander, if they can do that. They bandied out the name Mike Moustakas, and it could very well be that they bring him in as well and move Todd Frazier to first base, not putting pressure on Peter Alonso, who may need another year in AAA, or at least a half a season in AAA, so he can actually learn and master that position down there. Because, he was in Las Vegas last year, which is a hitter's haven. Now he's going to be in the International League, which is more of a pitcher's league. So let's see if he can hit home runs in AAA in the International League. It's going to, instead of bringing him up too quickly and seeing him maybe suffer a little bit. The quick question is this, and I believe SNY put it out there today, that the Mets are around one after everything is said and done, with factoring in raises, factoring in arbitrations. The Mets are close to 170 on the 40-man roster in payroll. So if they're going to add anything huge, they're going to be pushing the mark for they're going to be pushing the mark of the 200 million mark. So that's not going to happen. We know the Wilpons. They're going to spend a little bit more. And if, spending 270 is more than, spending 170 is more than 150, that they spent last year. So they are spending more money, but they're not going to be spending a tremendous amount more and bring themselves over the luxury tax level. We know that. So that's going to be interesting to see how Van Wagenen now will have a small amount of money and how he can spread this around and be able to, bring in the necessary pieces to make the Mets a whole team. Fangraphs put them out today to say they're about an 85-win team as they're constituted right now. The Nationals are a 91-win team. The Phillies are under 500. The Braves are at 500. This is all how they're constituted at this point right now. So we'll see if they can bring in other players. Now, this is all the analytical numbers and everything else. They still have to play the games. Yeah, we can say they're an 85-win team here, but, if some guys have bad seasons, they're not going to be. If some guys have career years that never had it, so let's just say Ahmad Rosario hits 340 this year with, 40 doubles and leads the league in triples, it's going to raise the number. And if Michael Conforto comes back and hits 35 home runs, and he's going to, and hits 300. It's going to raise the number. Brandon Nimmo has a step forward. It's going to raise the number. So it's all factored in on how they're doing on averages. Now, if they're going to do better, that's great. If Yoenis Cespedes comes back early, and say he comes back in June, and he actually is the old Cespedes, it doesn't seem any worse for wear and stays healthy, he can carry the team, and it's going to add wins to that total. But those are the things you have to consider right now. But the biggest thing is depth. All right, they got the pitching. They got 5 starters. But, Syndergaard could be on the DL. DeGrom could be on the DL. Matt's had a healthy season last year, but that's no guarantee. Wheeler's been injured in the past. And Jason Vargas you don't know about. Corey Oswald's a nice pitcher, but there's your depth right there. Be after him, who do the Mets have? I hear crickets out there. So they need another guy who they can bring in for their spot start or to take, a rotation spot for 2 or 3 weeks, especially if more than one starter goes down. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they use 8-9 starters. They have done that in the past. They lucked out in 2016 because they had Seth Lugo and Robert Gsellman, who are now bullpen stalwarts. And their bullpen now with Diaz, Familiar, Gsellman, and Lugo is rated pretty high right now, and they believe Daniel Zamora is going to be a good lefty, a good reliable lefty, but they need somebody else out there. And so these are going to be the small moves we're going to be seeing in January as Van Wagenen tries to work out the roster. Across town, the Yankees. And the Yankees' big news this week, besides announcing J.A. Happ today and having a little conference call with him and how he's happy to be back in the Bronx, blah, blah, blah. The Yankees brought in Manny Machado for a visit. Now, if the Yankees wanted Manny Machado, he would be on the Yankees right now. No questions asked. But the question is, do they want him? Or do they need him? Number one, there is questions about his makeup. Is he the type of guy you want to bring in? Is he, will he blend into that Yankee clubhouse? Just remember, guys like Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, these guys that they brought up, the homegrown players, they're very likable guys. CC Sabathia, even Severino, etc., very likable guys. And if you bring in a guy like Machado, who's had questionable makeup in the past, is that going to ruin the dynamic? Is that going to cause friction in the dugout, in the clubhouse? What does that do to Didi Gregorius when he comes back? What does that do to Miguel Andujar when Didi comes back? Those are all questions you're going to ask. And you're tying up that spot for 7 or 8 years because that's what he's going to sign for. He's not going to sign for 5 years or 4 years or 2 years or an opt-out. It's just not going to happen. He's going to get his money, with either Philly, the Yankees, or the White Sox. Yeah, personally, I'd rather see him go to Chicago. Let him go out there. But, if he goes to Philly, they want to spend the money. They want to make the splash. They already promised their fan base they're going to make the splash. So if the Yankees have to ask themselves the question, will they change the dynamic for that one guy? Now, a couple of years ago, they did do that for Aroldis Chapman and signed him even though they were changing and paring payroll down. And the reason why is because Chapman's unique. He's a front-of-the-line closer, and they don't grow on trees. So they brought him in. You already knew him. You had him for half a year before. You knew him. You knew he could blend right in, even though he had the domestic violence issues in the past. He came in, was a model Yankee. He was started the World Series for the Cubs. He came back to the Yankees, and he's been a star ever since. Now, is Manny Machado going to be the same? No, he hasn't played in New York. But, can he play? He played in Los Angeles very well. But again, there's questions about hustling. There's questions about, did he do a dirty play in the playoffs against the Brewers, et cetera, et cetera. Personally, I think the Yankees are good the way they are. And they're better off bringing in maybe somebody who can fill in for half a season. A Troy Tulowitzki is a nice move. And the Yankees were with them and actually connected to his name as well. And he might be better off doing that because if you have Tulowitzki there for 4 months and he doesn't work out, Didi comes back, everybody's happy, everybody works. Tulowitzki costs you the major league minimum. So it's going to be these questions right now that's coming out. Other things that are going on in the baseball world. Daniel Murphy signed with the Colorado Rockies. Andrew Miller, who the Mets were looking at, looks like he's signing with the St. Louis Cardinals. And it's interesting to see this year with free agency as opposed to last year that players are signing contracts now. And part of the reason why is because the market came down and they're taking what they believe they can get. So, for example, they're not holding out for the huge contracts anymore. They know, hey, Murphy's signing for 2 years with $12 million a year. Great. He's happy. He's signing. He's in Colorado. His numbers are going to go up. He's 35. He's 34. Going to be 34 on opening day. And he's going to be, age 34, 35 year. He's going to be pretty good. So that's, and after those 2 years, he might be getting a little bit of a bump. But the days of the bump and bump and bump coming up with a contract, I think the players know that's over.